Hi, I'm Christina, and this is Desert Agave Fiber Arts. My pronouns are she, they. I am Latina, bipolar, autistic, and I have ADHD and PTSD. I'm a writer, a fiber artist, and you can find me on various socials and places on links you will see below in the show notes. Also, I've got a new haircut. I literally just got this haircut this morning. I've had it for like an hour and a half at this point, so I'm still getting used to it, but I am delighted. I guess it might look kind of different to those of you who have seen me before, and those of you who haven't, you're saying, why is she talking about her hair? Well, I just am. So I have shared before that I'm a writer, and last night I wrote a little essay, and then this morning I polished it up, tweaked it a little bit, and it was about this, the red hat. And there's been, especially I've seen it on Threads, there's been a lot of discussion about this hat, whether it's appropriate or inappropriate. I in no way have what I think is the final word on this discussion, but I do have a perspective that I think I haven't really seen yet, and I had a brain flash about it last night, and I just want to share it. Normally, I do this podcast totally off the cuff, but today I want to just read you the essay that I wrote because I don't really trust myself to hit all the points if I do it off the cuff. So kind of settle in. I'm assuming a lot of you have your knitting or maybe your crochet or something else, and pretend like you're at one of those evening coffee shop open mics, spin some nice music, spin some poetry, and then this person comes up with their essay in hand, and they start reading. There we go. I had a brain flash while I was making soup for dinner last night. All day, I had been fascinated by the hat fighting on Threads. I made 2 posts on Threads the other day, but then I thought better of it and stopped. Both sides of the arguing were filled with people being terrible. So much so that I really question if a number of them were more bot-type infiltrators inflaming the discourse among the actual humans on both sides. For those who don't know, the Melt the Ice hat is based on hats Norwegians wore during the Nazi occupation of their country as a sign of protest and resistance. And many have pointed out it was far from the only thing they did to resist, but it was one. The pattern is being sold for $5. I will link it below. And all proceeds are being donated to help immigrants in the Twin Cities. I wasn't sure yesterday why I couldn't stay away from the spectacle of all the fighting, but it was kind of itching in my brain, and I just kept going back for more. And then one exchange cemented what was nagging me about it for me. A light bulb went off. And that exchange was, one person posted that the red Norwegian hats are performative, and why can't people do something that would make a real difference? And another person replied that the $5 pattern, as of that day, had raised over $125,000, all of which was being donated to pay the rent and utilities of real people, real immigrants in the Twin Cities who haven't been able to leave their homes. And by the way, I saw today, apparently that's now up to $250,000. The first person then replied scathingly, why did all those people need to get something before they donated $5? And my brain went ding, 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 fundraising. A thing I've been learning about for the past 4 years is fundraising for nonprofits. I went from knowing absolutely nothing to knowing a tiny bit, and now knowing not a lot, but something. I chaired the committee at my Unitarian Universalist church this year that coordinates the annual pledge drive. And the pledge drive did better than expected, considering the considerable turmoil our congregation experienced and also the country at large experienced. Also this year, I wrote a fundraising letter for the nonprofit my teenage son is involved with, which resulted in a significant amount of donations being sent in. And so I'm no expert, but I've learned a few things about fundraising for nonprofits. First, I have learned that one challenge with grassroots fundraising is that folks who could only afford to donate $5, and in today's world, there are many folks like this, they worry that their $5 won't make a difference. Part of what I love about this hat pattern, which is in fact a fundraising cause, fundraising drive, is that it has shown people that $5 does make a difference. It adds up, just like voting makes a difference. Real, actual human beings will not be evicted or will be able to keep the lights and the heats on because of all those $5 donations. That's amazing, and it's so powerful. Second thing I've learned, people don't respond to shaming or to gloom and doom with donations. They just don't. I am told by people who know more about fundraising than me that there are actual studies that show this very clearly. My guess, and it's just my speculation, is that folks who all have limited resources, except for the billionaires, and I doubt there's any billionaires watching this, folks who have limited resources don't want to put their donation dollars into a place that they figure is imploding and ineffective. They want their donations to make a positive impact in the world, and for most people, shame and gloom and doom messaging doesn't sound convincing. People will save their money for somewhere else that they think maybe can actually make a difference. Another thing I learned doing nonprofit fundraising is that people like a little gift. And it doesn't have to be a mug or a t-shirt or a commemorative tile, although, sometimes it can be. It can be something as simple as the gift of a story. This year, when my Unitarian Universalist Church's pledge drive campaign needed a little boost, I stood in front of my church and I read a letter that I had written. And that letter included some personal details about myself and how I manage my disabilities. And people responded. They appreciated the story, and many people told me so. And some people who were able to, because they had the means, were able to raise their pledges. And that made a difference. It made a huge difference. And some of those people, I think, raised their pledges by quite a lot. I had some people come up and tell me, I'm raising my pledge. I can't afford to do much. And again, I told them, every bit counts. That letter that I wrote also told a story about how the nonprofit has helped my son over many years. And I'm told that the donations that have come in have often come in with a note saying, this is for your son. How could I not donate after hearing his story? A big reason this pattern sold so many copies was because it told a good story. The hat is kind of funny looking. Hello. There. Sorry, just a second. There. Okay. The hat is kind of funny looking, but it tells a really powerful story. I bought that pattern because I liked the story that it told, and I wanted to say thank you for the story, and I wanted to be a part of something positive. And just so we know, this was far from the only donating I've done to support the Twin Cities immigrant communities. And I wasn't even sure I was going to make a hat until I shared the story with my husband, who has Norwegian heritage and Minnesotan roots. And I asked if he wanted a hat, and he said yes. And that's how people work. And I think that's how people have worked basically since we were people. We respond to hope and we respond to little gifts, which can be something as simple as a story. And I guess some folks can bemoan that and say, why can't we be different? But that's how we are. And for me, I am a pragmatist at heart. I want things to work. I want the causes I care about to thrive and to help real people. So you're not going to find me in public shaming people. I might vent at home in private, but I'm not going to post that on the internet. And I am almost always good for a story. And you can follow a link, again, included in the show notes, that has a page with many ways to donate to people in the Twin Cities area in several different capacities, if you have a way that you can help too, beyond your $5 for the hat. But if you bought this hat pattern, your $5 mattered. I can't remember if I said this already, but I saw this morning that the $125,000 is now $250,000. That's astounding. That is going to help so many people, and I can't be angry about that. At the same time, I understand that there are people who I care about who are angry about that. And their anger is real. And also the people who are being helped, they're real too. I can't reconcile it all in this little video, but that's my perspective on fundraising for nonprofits and how it can be effective. This was an amazingly effective pattern of fundraising effort. And I guess, you know, it's funny, as I've become involved in fundraising and doing fundraising writing, one thing a lot of people say to me is, oh, I could never do that. I could never ask people for their money. And it's not like asking people for their money is a thing that brings me joy. But like I said, I'm a pragmatist, and we live in the society that we do, where you need money to get things done. And it's really important to me that the causes I care about that protect people, people of color, LGBTQ plus people, everybody, you know, that people be protected from the terrible things that are going on right now because of our government. And I'm really happy that the pattern for the hat is going to protect people, real people. And I just wanted to point that out. And with that, this is probably my shortest podcast ever. They're usually more like 40 minutes, but this is my new weekly thing. In the past, I've done them randomly, a month at a time, sometimes many months apart at a time. But I've made the commitment to, for at least the next couple of months, to try really hard to post weekly. So this is my second weekly podcast. Maybe next week I'll tell you more about my awesome steeped sweater. I'll link the pattern below so that you can see it, but we'll talk about it more later. I don't feel like this is the time to go into details about that. But thank you for watching. Thank you for your care. And I will see you next week.